TBC Classic has been awesome so far. The main character is all sorted out with full Phase 1 base and is fully attuned for all of the raids in Phase 2. So that's why I started leveling up a second character, which was of course the Hunter. And yeah, it's been really fun. It's surprisingly fast paced and has a huge damage output. So 100% we will be finishing that series at some point. But I don't know, I've got a bit of an itch to scratch. I really want to do some big AoE pools, and originally I wanted to start leveling up my warrior, but yeah, he's kinda stuck in Azeroth. Mage would be another great option, but to be honest, I don't really want to just be pressing Arcane Blast as fast as possible. Plus, I'm just not really a caster kinda guy. So, I have decided to start a brand new character, a Paladin. So of course, the first thing we have to do, which is arguably the most important part of playing WoW, creating a character. Now don't yell at me, because I know some of you will be upset with me, but I did actually boost this character from level 17 to level 58, and there's a couple of reasons as to why. Firstly, we've kind of already done the 1 to 60 leveling before, and I know that I will eventually come back to playing vanilla WoW, so I don't really want to dilute that experience any more than I already have. Secondly, I actually did start leveling this character all the way back when the pre-patch first hit. I had the video all completed and edited and ready to post, and then my stupid ass managed to delete literally the entire video. So I don't really want to do the first 20 levels again. So why not pay Blizzard to do it for me? And just like that, our brand new character, Holy Balls, is ready to step on through the Dark Portal. So spawning in for the first time, we are thrown directly into Stormwind in front of our class trainer, with some pretty piss poor gear and a very small amount of gold to get us started. And opening up the talents window for the first time, it hit me. This was a terrible idea, because there was just so many abilities, so much stuff that was all being thrown at me at the same time, and it was quite overwhelming. But no, I've done this to myself. So unsurprisingly, I used Wowhead to just simply copy over the talents, just to give us a solid baseline. Oh, and in case it wasn't obvious, we are going to be leveling this character as a protection paladin, because like I said, the one thing that I was craving above all was doing massive AoE pools, and prop paladins are the absolute kings of AoE. Plus this would be my first proper dive into a different role. I mean sure, I tank sometimes on my druid, but I've never played a character that was truly dedicated to another role. So once talents were set up and abilities were learned, I did a quick bag clear and set my Hearthstone in Stormwind, and began moving down towards the Blasted Lands. And kinda insane, but the boosted characters get every single flight path. Then again, I suppose it would really suck to have to manually collect them all at level 60. So after I made the short journey down to the portal, I turned the little pre-quest in that I had picked up, and finally, it was time for Holy Balls to take her first steps through the Dark Portal. Ah, the beautiful skies of Outland. Does it really get much better than this? Can't lie though, the Paladin class mount really doesn't suit the Draenei that much. I mean, that does not look comfortable. But I made my way down the stairs and accepted the first quest that TBC has to offer, which simply sends us on a complimentary flight over to Honorhold. And once we arrived, we went through the regular motions of collecting every nearby quest and got straight to work killing the Bone Chewer orcs. Now I can't lie, rotation wise, I was absolutely clueless. I was trying my best to follow the little rotation sheet that is up on Wowhead, but you can clearly see that I had absolutely no idea. I did understand how the seals worked. You apply a seal, which would give your weapon swing some kind of buff, and you can unleash them at enemies for big damage or other permanent effects on the target. But I was sticking to mostly using Seal of Righteousness, not sure if that's the optimal thing to do, but it just simply does damage, which allowed me to focus on just applying seals, judgment them instantly, and then reapplying the seals afterwards. I smell a macro in the near future. So as we were just doing the first quest, I want to talk a little bit about the plan currently. So obviously, as a protection paladin, dungeons are going to be so insanely fun, and I was really excited to jump into Hellfire Ramparts. However, we are still level 58, Plus, the communal gear that the boosted characters spawn in with really isn't very good. We are extremely squishy, plus we had literally zero spell power, which means we wouldn't be generating any threat at all. However, I know from past experience that the quests in Hellfire Peninsula offer some really good early gear upgrades. So I decided that we are going to do quests up until we were able to get the quest Overlord and get the trinket Regal Protectorate. It's a fantastic defensive trinket that gives us 26 defense rating and an on use that increases our health by 900 for 15 seconds. It's so good that even once we are level 70, we will probably still be using this thing for a good while. So the first thing that I was immediately noticing is that simply killing mobs was going way too slow. So I quickly returned to Honor Hold to clear my bags and equip this very nice weapon that I had sent myself, the Revitalizing Hammer of Stamina. This thing was made for tanks. A nice big chunk of stam plus some spell power. To be honest, I don't really know why I sent myself this. I think I was just browsing the auction house and this thing just happened to pop up. And unfortunately, with us only being level 58, the amount of available quests that were appropriate level was pretty small. In fact, the only available one currently was the quest over by Zeth Gore, which wants us to slay fell orcs until we loot a cursed talisman. And just to put it into perspective of how bad the communal gear really is, against just these two mobs here, I had to use Lay on Hands. Granted, I still didn't really know what I was doing, since I didn't click Holy Shield a single time, but still. Now luckily that didn't actually take us very long to do. I think it was only about 4 mobs in total. So of course, I then ran over to Expedition Point to hand the quest in, which now wanted us to do that 12 more times. But I was also able to pick up this quest, which was offering some very nice looking stuff for what is an extremely simple quest. So I was over at one of the towers trying to progress that quest, and things kind of got a little bit out of hand. One mob very quickly turned into 2 mobs, which turned into 4 mobs, and unsurprisingly, that did mean I took my first death. However, right before I did, I managed to loot the mob, and he had an extremely good green BOE, which was the Tourmaline Loop of the Sorcerer, which would give stamina, intellect, and spell power. What more could we possibly want? I also got my first taste of Paladin PvP against this random moonkin who decided to attack me. Not a clue what to do in this situation either, to be honest. But you know what? As I was doing the talisman quest, I was starting to feel a lot more comfortable with multiple mob pools. I started to realize that Holy Shield was a very important ability, and this talisman quest was just taking so incredibly long to get done. I mean, Lay on Hands was almost off cooldown, but I actually didn't mind that. It was actually just a great chance to get used to all the abilities. But eventually, I was able to get the quest completed. So I returned to Expedition Point, and I claimed us our first piece of blue gear, and I couldn't be happier with it. I mean, just look at it. This will definitely last for quite a few levels. So with that now done, I returned to Zeth Gore for the last time and went into this big building in the back, and I teamed up with a nearby Paladin. And to be honest, this was kinda a bit of a reality check, because he was a Ret Paladin, and I couldn't hold threat to save my life. So as tempted as I was to just go straight into Hellfire Ramparts, we definitely still needed to fill out a few of the gear slots. So I made my way back over to Honor Hold, and sadly the appropriate level quests had run dry. But that's okay, because as I was just killing some orcs for a quest, we managed to hit level 59. So now that we are level 59, an absolute heap of quests had turned yellow. So I of course returned to Honor Hold and got to work on the quests inside of the Honor Hold mine. Now at this point, we had managed to get a good couple of upgrades, and I was definitely feeling it. I started doing only multiple mob pools. I'm still not convinced that it was quicker than playing Ret would have been, but that's not really the point. The quest reward for this one actually gave us this lovely cloth belt. Now I did actually read something online that someone had posted saying don't fall into the trap whilst leveling a prop paladin and start equipping cloth gear. But one piece of gear, it's not going to hurt, right? Plus, the quicker I can kill things, the better. Now, I actually ended up taking a break for a couple of days at this point, but coming back, I managed to rack up quite a huge chunk of rested XP, meaning getting to level 60 now would be insanely quick. So I went over to the Path of Glory and quickly did the quest where we have to cleanse trampled skeletons, and I was kinda expecting a nice weapon upgrade from this quest, because on the Hunter, the axe we get from this is so insanely good. But sadly, that just wasn't the case. So I moved back east to Expedition Point, this time to complete the little quest where we have to shut some demon portals. Wasn't too bad, it was pretty chill, just cleaving off every mob, although I did end up running out of water, which was a bit of a pain in the ass. But the follow-up quest sent us on a griffin to drop bombs on some more demon portals. I actually remembered this quest quite well, because it's very quick to complete and offers us a nice big chunk of XP, which managed to get us to level 60. So now that we are level 60, we could actually just jump straight into Hellfire Ramparts if we wanted, but no, I was going to stick to the plan and get us that trinket. And for whatever reason, the quest marker wasn't showing up on my map. So I googled it, and turns out we first had to kill the mini-boss Warbringer Arix Amal. Now I actually did remember this guy from when we were on the Hunter. So I went over to the area that I thought the boss was in, because I thought we could do these quests here and it would eventually lead me to him. Yeah, turns out that wasn't true at all, and I was in fact questing in a completely different part of the map. But in the long run, it's more XP, so can't really complain. Plus, more time to practice? I don't know, I'm just trying to come up with excuses for my own stupidity. Can't lie though, these quests were actually quite fun to do. There was a lot of big AoE pools, and like I said, that's kinda all I'm wanting to get out of this character. Plus, we got to do the quest where we sift through Fellhound shit. I mean, how could I pass up such an opportunity? After all, this is the shit expansion, apparently. But apart from shit exploring, we also went into the little cave and did the stuff in there. And this was probably the most enjoyable cave experience I've ever had in this game. Caves are usually a terrifying experience where you're attacked by 18 different mobs at once. But finally, that's exactly what I wanted to happen. But after turning that quest in, that was unfortunately the end of 4-man Razzle-Kraz's questline, and I finally realised that we were in the completely wrong area. So I googled his exact location, and yeah, I was nowhere even close. Actually getting to him though was also a bit of a challenge itself, because there was just so many mobs in the way, and every time I killed one, another one seemed to appear out of thin air. But eventually, I did make it to Arix, and I killed him, and I picked up the Burning Legion Missive, which is the item that we needed to start the quest chain. So of course, I wasted no time and returned to Honor Hold and picked us up the Overlord quest. Now luckily, I did know exactly what quest this was, and I was well aware that the area we have to go to has another quest to do there. So I first went over to the Temple of Telhamat, turned in a couple of random quests that I had, and grabbed the quest that we needed. And of course, I completely neglected the flight point, as per usual. Now luckily, since we are a tank this time around, I was able to find myself a couple of people to do the quest with very easily. And well, this was it. This was like my first proper tanking experience. To be honest, I still wasn't 1000% sure what the optimal rotation was, especially for single target. I kinda just pressed everything on cooldown, which seemed to work quite well. Unfortunately though, the priest that was with us that I thought was a healer, in fact, wasn't a healer, and I ended up dying right at the very last second. But regardless, we had managed to get the quest completed, which is all that really mattered. And of course, I rushed back to Honor Hold and I handed it in. And we had acquired our brand new trinket, which means we are almost ready for our first Hellfire Ramparts run. But before we went and did that, we had one very important errand to tackle first, and that was of course visiting our class trainer. And thank God I did, because we had a boatload of very important abilities to get. Hammer of Wrath, Greater Blessing of Wisdom, Avenger's Shield, Salvation, Might, Kings, you name it. Now there was actually one other thing that I had to do, and that was fill in all of the gear gaps, because I seem to have an irrational fear that I won't be able to hold aggro. So after browsing the auction house, I eventually bought myself a bunch of this Of the Sorcerer gear, and granted it was quite expensive, but I think it will be worth it. So now that that is done, I made my way back to Honor Hold and went towards the dungeon entrance. Now, even just standing there, buffing everyone up, I can't lie, I was feeling pretty nervous, because I had a grand total of maybe 5 hours on this class, and now I'm expected to guide a group through a dungeon that I've also not ran all that many times. But I decided to just bite the bullet and send in my first Avenger's Shield. But something wasn't feeling right. I was actually holding aggro, and the only thing I could think of right now was, is this what tanking is really like? Is this what tanking is supposed to be? See, I thought tanking was just 30 minutes of being yelled at. I never realized Paladin tanking was so refined. Now, this first group that we were in was actually a spell cleave group, which basically means we've just stacked 3 mages together. Now, I know that there's a way that you're supposed to be tanking these kinds of groups, however, I was clueless on how I was actually supposed to be playing this, and thankfully this group was very nice. They were very patient and they were explaining the spell cleave loop to me, which made this a much nicer experience. So now that we are just clearing our way to the first boss, let's talk about loot. Now, there is actually quite a lot of nice things for us to get, such as the Band of Renewal, giving us some stam, intel and spell power, the Witching Band doing almost the exact same thing, and the Heartblood prayer beads. Now, at the time, for whatever reason, I was so focused on getting spell power. In my head, I thought we needed hundreds of spell power in order to be efficient. I wasn't really considering the defensive pieces of gear when I really should have, since there was quite a lot of them in here as well, such as the Mok Nathal Wilder Cloak, Iron Soul Clompers, and Mok Nathal Clan Ring. Now, there is actually more, but I think you get the point, right? No matter what we are killing in here, there's always the chance of us getting something useful. So moving on to the first boss now, Watchkeeper Garglemar. And I was kinda scared to see what my single target threat was going to be like, but it was actually completely fine. We had way over double the amount of threat that the hunter had. For his loot, he dropped the light touched breastplate. Now, like I said, I was really focused on spell power for some reason, and I ended up passing on this when I really should have taken it for mitigation. So moving upstairs now, we as a group decided to try something silly. We wanted to pull the entire room, and it started out okay. I used my bubble to pull as many as I possibly could, but I ended up getting stunned back to back and I got completely clattered. But no worry, since mages are the most broken class in the game, and they managed to cleave every single one of the mobs with no issue. Remember how I was talking about that desire to AoE things? This was perfect. Moving on now to the second to last boss, Omor the Unscarred. Now, he actually was going quite well, at least for single target anyway. The only real issue that I had here was when I started getting flung around, which caused him to reset my threat. But for his loot, he dropped the Blood-Stained Ravager gauntlets. Pretty good hunter gloves, but evidently I don't think we are currently playing a hunter. So with that boss now done, we actually move straight into the final boss, which is Vazrudin and Nazan. Now this one is actually quite the group destroyer, at least in my experience anyway, purely because Nazan lays down balls of fire that you've got to not stand in, which for classic players I know is a pretty big ask, and I actually did end up dying to him right as he died. His loot was also quite disappointing, giving us nothing but 2 pairs of legs, which we cannot use. But with that now done, we had officially tanked our first dungeon on the Paladin. And you know what? It was so much fun. I genuinely never realized that Paladin tanking was this smooth. With me obviously being a feral druid, AoE tanking has always been a bit of an issue, and all I can really say is, I cannot wait to see how all the other dungeons play out. I hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. I apologise for the lack of uploads this month. It has been a very busy few weeks and I honestly just felt like taking a bit of a break. Because, you know, everyone needs a break now and then, right? But I am very much enjoying Paladin. like a lot. As for the content coming, I am working on a Phase 2 Druid video. Very exciting, I know. In between that though, I think we might just stick to doing Paladin videos for now. And I know that probably brings up the question to a lot of you, what about the Hunter? Well, I'll be 100% honest, I'm not enjoying the Hunter that much. It started off okay, but I don't know, it's just not really for me anymore, I don't think. And I don't really want to be making a video that I just don't really care about, right? But who knows, maybe sometime soon I'll get back to it. Anyway, I think that is enough yapping for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.